Okay, I don't often get UFC events, but with George St-Pierre having his first fight in over a year and a half, it would make sense that this is one of the ones that you almost had to get. A lot of the undercard went to decisions, which, you know, a few of them were fairly lopsided, but while they're great technical fights, if you want to see an exciting fight, you really don't get it that much. So then the co-main event, Hendricks and Cantman. Wow, this was like a 45-second long fight, and it was pretty much Hendricks hitting the left that didn't look like it had a lot of oomph behind it, but yeah, it laid Cantman out. It's just like, and you saw it wasn't one of those like extension go through with it. It was kind of like he just put all of his strength right into it, almost like a Jeet Kune Do straight punch, and just that was it. Second, the main event, Condit GSP in Montreal, Canada. So the crowd heavily behind GSP. You know, GSP's takedowns were just virtually unstoppable. I mean, whenever he wanted to take Condit down, he pretty much did. Condit was able to scramble out of a few of them. George actually got his back towards the end of, I want to say it was the fourth round. But a decent amount of cuts to Condit early. He was bleeding heavily. The first two rounds arguably were entirely in George's favor. Third round, Condit threw a nice combination, and then this kick that seemed to come entirely out of nowhere. And you actually see his ankle, you see part of his ankle bone, just clip George in the top of the head. And then you see George go down. Then you see Condit spring on him. We're thinking, this is it, this fight's done. You know, he clipped George hard, hematoma, looks like he had like an ear growing out on the top of his head. Just super stiff shot. And George weathers through it. So third round easily goes to Condit. Next two rounds, it's just George just doing more takedowns. Condit doing a great job from the bottom. You know, beautiful elbows from the bottom. Constantly trying to go for Kimuras or for arm bars. Almost had him in what was kind of like a knee lock. Really just nice, solid work. But at the end of the day, unanimous decision, George St-Pierre. A really, really well done fight. So now you got to figure out what's going to happen next for George St-Pierre. Will he take on Hendricks? Which would be an impressive fight. Because, you know, if Hendricks is able to get a good shot on George, he'll probably knock him out. Or do they try to go for the super fight with him and Silva? I'm thinking George will probably want to stick in his weight class, at least for the time being, for a couple more fights before he'd want to try to take on somebody like Silva. So the two main events, absolutely fantastic. The rest of the undercard, you know, sometimes you watch a fight go to decision, you entirely know who's going to win, because the guy just really didn't have anything going on. And other times they're so evenly matched that it's just constant move and counter move, so you really aren't quite sure who's going to win. But I will say, I think his name was Lawlor. Can't say Lawler. Did a beautiful job at his weigh-in channeling the Shockmaster. And of course, he had to do a clone trooper, I suppose a stormtrooper. Loved it, thought it was great. Had to explain it to my buddy who's a mixed martial arts fan who doesn't know wrestling. But I will thank Joe Rogan for actually mentioning the Shockmaster on UFC.